Hi, this is Amber Bock, and I am here today for Superintendent Spotlight. Our goal today is actually to spend a very succinct amount of time talking with you about the school budget and our upcoming warrant articles. I am here with one of my most favorite colleagues, Anita Patel, our Director of Finance and Operations, and together we spend way too much time
together.
We spend a lot of time together working with the school committee, working with the community, and building the budget and the warrant articles for presentation at town meeting. So we're going to take the next 15 or 20 minutes and share with you the highlights you need to know in order to be able to come to town meeting and be prepared and ready to go. So welcome to today's Superintendent Spotlight. So why don't we dive right in, Anita? Why don't you talk a little bit about what's coming up for town meeting? We want this to be informational for everybody.
So town meeting will be held at 9 a.m. on Saturday, March 23rd. I will note that we will have childcare will be provided, and that it's very important to be registered voter in order to vote at town meeting as well.
And you can attend, even if you aren't a registered voter. There's a whole section you can sit in so you can participate. But I think it's really good to be there and to add into the community service of coming to town meeting and voting. I think it's also really important to recognize that we hope to always accomplish town meeting in one night. Sometimes it takes two, so you can plan on the fact that Saturday is a long day, but it's an important day. It's every operational decision about how the town runs. Our job today is to share with you the ones related to the school budget and to plan so that you feel informed to vote. So let's dive right in.
Let's do it.
One of the first important things we acknowledge about our budget is that currently we have a stable district model. We're serving about 4,000 students. We run 27 buses throughout this district actively in 3 tiers. We have before and after school programs. We have morning breakfast programs in all of our schools. It is a really busy, active district. Over 700 staff actively working. That's everybody though. That's 700, that's
everybody.
That's everybody. That's para educators, it's all of us.
Yep.
The arm of what runs the district, all of us working together. But that number's been pretty stable now for the last couple of years.
It has.
So that's the team that you have working to run the district. And what we want to talk about this year is really the story of this year's budget in a very succinct way is that the whole increase is salary.
100%.
I think it's important to really look at that. So why don't we talk about that in terms of like what that represents. We try to keep that number as tight as possible. So can you talk with people about the fact that before we look at our overall increase in this year's budget, can you talk about what we do to try to keep that number as tight as possible with grants and revolving, kind of walk us through that?
So right now we actually spend about $3.8 million for our salary for an offset that we charge off to grants and revolving accounts. And then another
3 million, really.
Another 3 million, yeah.
So just under $7 million all in that we're utilizing with a preschool tuition account, some revolving accounts, student activity accounts, and other ways that we work to provide offsets for the community. Currently, you can see in this slide, we have about 91 faculty that we are carrying on grants and revolvings, which keep about $3 million out of that salary number.
And plus, it's important to note that if we didn't have these monies, it would be put onto the operating account.
Exactly.
Just through the general fund.
So it's important to know that we're always working to keep that number as tight as possible. But at the same time, I think one of the important things to recognize is that we are a district that serves people. We're in the human industry of education, and our budget is vastly salaries. So when you look at this pie graph, you get a picture of the fact that 83, almost 84% of our budget is the salaries that we were just talking about. That's 725 staff plus the additional 91 that you have that are just like in that package. Now the 91 is included in that 7.
It is.
Yeah,
it is.
Because in that other slide, we show that what's on the salary cost at the town meeting and then what we have on grants. If you look at this pie graph, you can see that we have all the other operational costs of the district pretty much into the last portion of the budget.
It is, and our second and third highest are transportation and student services. So, as you said earlier, 84% is for salaries.
So this year we are looking at a 5.4% increase to the budget. You see that in that block there. And we want to drill down and talk a little bit more about that so that you can see what that cost is attached to. I think one of the important things to recognize when Anita and I, when we built that budget, I think one of the important things to recognize is that we were negotiating contracts all last year.
Correct.
And we finished those negotiations late May,
I think
when we finished the last one.
That's what I understand.
So the budget had been voted in December. It had been then approved at town meeting in March. But the finalization of those contracts didn't happen until the end of May for really the fine detail of any increases. And so we ended up having about an $800,000 gap in FY24, the budget that we're currently in. Now, in some cases, we could go back to town meeting. Many times I see many communities that Anita checked in with go back to town meeting in October and get those salary increases approved. We really felt we could absorb that this year with some cuts internally, some deferred services.
Yeah, we were able to tighten our belts pretty well.
Yeah.
So we'll be okay, which is the best outcome for us.
So we really felt that instead of going back in October, we could manage it across this year. But what that means is that the increase in the budget this year that's hitting salary is that 800 that we covered this year internally plus the increase for 25. So it's a larger increase typically than we see for salaries. I think that's really important. I mean, year over year, people have come and supported our budgets. And typically the salary number isn't what's the chief drive. It's not the only part of the increase. We've had other program things we've done. And this year we actually cut a bunch of things and moved a lot of money around to try to keep that
We
number
were
as
able
tight
to
as
do
possible. So you can see here that we level funded a lot of items. We did a lot of reallocation. Anita's going to talk you through some of that and share. But really overall, when all is said and done, when we moved everything around, about $12,000 of that budget increase is not salaries, and the rest is all salaries.
It is, correct. Yeah.
So let's drill down into that even a little bit more. Can you talk about kind of how this slide gives us a picture of that?
So if you can see the FY25 level service slide, as you can see, we were able to decrease our student services allocation, and that is because we are going to be receiving additional monies for our student services account through our circuit breaker reimbursement. And we had a modest increase in curriculum and staff development, technology, very tiny increase in athletics, our transportation increase. I'll note that we did increase our out-of-district transportation by 10% and the in-town transportation by a much smaller number.
So great highlights there. I think a couple things that really helped us. So the state funds we get allowed us we're maintaining services for student services and special education. Those aren't being diminished, but we had savings there, which was very, very good news.
Very important to
We
highlight
shifted
that.
all that over to salary. And I think some other good news, you can see facilities is down about 40,000. We actually saved by zeroing out fails, right?
Fails, yep. So that was for the gas and the electricity.
And we were able to do that because fails is now net zero using the geothermal and the solar panels that were part of that new project. I think that's really good news to see almost $100,000 that we could push against facilities that, as well as the positive impact on the environment to see that commitment. So overall, we were about almost $200,000 in overall service levels that we saved, and we did all that reallocation over to salaries. So lots of highlights there. We're maintaining services, but really being careful to make sure that we're carrying as much of those allocations to cover salaries in budget reallocations that we can manage on our own. So here it is. It kind of tells that story again. I think it's good to see it in a couple different ways. You can see all the buildings in yellow there, all level funded curriculum, staff development. fine arts level funded, school committee work level funded, and then in some other modest increases or decreases in those other areas. And that overall, we pretty much put all of that increase towards salaries to maintain the fact that we are highly committed to having our staff well paid, to stay competitive. I think you're going to continue to see that there's fewer and fewer people going into education career-wise. It's been a very stressful time. So we need to keep competitive salaries. How are you feeling about our salaries now in comparison to like our neighboring districts? Are we in a better place?
So we actually do a salary comparison, and our staff is very well paid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We've made up a lot of ground.
Yeah.
And I think on behalf of the town, we really want to acknowledge that funding has made a difference for us being able to maintain and pay our staff as high quality professionals. And one of the good things is that when you come to Westborough, people enjoy working with our families and our students. They're really amazing. And that there's a positive energy to the professionalism, the salary, and how all of that interacts to make it a really great place to work. So that's our budget in a nutshell. It's all salary increase this year, and we made a lot of reallocations in order to make that happen and to bring in the tightest increase that we could. We don't think that it will be that high in the future for the salary rollover because we're picking up that gap. I mean, I think any other
So we're basically just catching up.
Yeah, we are. We are really catching up from really holding tight this year, which I continue to feel was a really good decision. And
it was.
Kudos to Anita for being able to really work with our team to help them understand the need for that and to make smart choices that have allowed us to sustain program this year while we also then slowed down on some other expenditures.
Yeah, we have.
So we continue to focus on excellence. We really take a moment to share some of these celebratory pictures you can see on this screen. Active learning across this district, students doing a beautiful balance of hands-on, technology, robotics, live science, lots of interactions in our buildings. We really believe in that face-to-face learning. We have students that are always still doing a nice combination of writing and working on computers. You see that balance there. A lot of manipulatives in our mathematics, all the things that we're known for that keep us a high-performing district, but personal and connected, where our teachers and our faculty are working really closely with our students so that their experience is positive. Here you can see that our budget increase is probably in the upper third this year on the higher side.
We're on the higher side,
but certainly within close to some of our neighboring communities. So the big thing we want to talk about is capital projects. There's so much to do here. We're going to have to keep it succinct as best we can for you. I guess the preliminary thing that Anita and I want to talk about is just recognizing that these are big numbers, but they're also big buildings.
And they're important.
And they're important that we care for them. One of our major charges is to care for the public facilities that Westborough has. You know that the municipal building committee takes care of project buildings and all of the owned buildings that fall within the town's ownership, and the schools work to maintain in partnership with them the ones that the schools have to maintain. This year it's a lot of roofing. So you see that we've continued to work with the capital committee. Can you kind of give us a succinct picture of like how that capital project works, that process, and how these things kind of get on the list? Like, why these projects? Why now? Can you kind of help us figure that out?
So we basically have a long-term capital plan, and the capital plan moves around from year to year according to need. And honestly, one of the projects that we're looking for funding this year for the roofing, it wasn't on the schedule to get done until next fiscal year. And then we had a catastrophic event happen, and then we had to push it up, and here we are. We're asking for money for town meeting in order to fund the roofing because it has to be done.
Yeah. It's difficult to put these numbers in front of people because they are really large numbers.
They are.
I just want to acknowledge that capital committee is a shared committee between Kim Foster, who's the assistant town manager, and select board members and school committee members. We go and we present to them. We bring our articles forward, and they're folding our projects in with town projects.
Yeah.
And I think it's become a really vibrant, meaningful process. Everyone's goal is to spread out those costs over time.
Yeah.
So our projects are part and parcel of that planning. These were the ones that the town capital committee felt should come forward now. We're going to step you through them. We've got the Hastings ADA. Now, we've been talking about Hastings for a long time. I feel like this is my final year. This is our budget presentation together before you're sitting with a new superintendent. The Hastings project, people know that we have repairs we need to make to that building. We can't make those repairs unless we go in and at this point do the ADA compliance pieces, which is to make sure that's that accessibility benchmark. Because any of these projects exceed the percentage that you can expend against the total building. Like, can you just
So it's 30%. So it's 30%.
So any project we put forward that is more than 30% of the total value of the building, and they accumulate, all your projects add up too.
Correct.
So you have to wait years for some project costs to kind of rotate out.
So it's a 3-year mark.
So we thought we could wait for a while and let some projects we had done age out, so then we could bring in a new one. The problem is project costs are so big that they automatically tip that percentage over and over, and we're kind of stuck in this
And they're
circle.
rising every day.
They are. I mean, I think it's important to note that years ago, we came to the town to do an MSBA exterior of the roof, windows, and doors. And we actually pulled that project back working with the town because we were trying to come up with that balanced debt planning. I still think that was a good decision, but it would have been a lot cheaper then than it is now. But you just have to make decisions as a team. And I still say that, we all just have to look forward. This is a project actually at 1:00 today. Anita and I are so excited to go. I don't know if we're excited or we're full of trepidation, probably a combination of both.
I think a little bit of both.
I think a little bit of both. We're going to be going over to basically open the bids for this ADA project, and we will have a hard number when we come to town meeting that is awardable to do this work. Right now, the capital committee is carrying $5 million.
We're carrying $5 million.
That they anticipate could be the cost of the project, and we will know later today what that is. We do have some funds that are already allocated that we can put against that, and we'll talk about that in a minute. So this would do doors, sinks, accessibility for toilets. It would do some nice updates in that space, but basically get us out of the loop where we can't do other work on the building. Then we could do the HVAC, we could do the roof, and we could do future projects. The other project where we're getting the bid information today is Mill Pond Roof. Now this is one of those examples where it's a lot of money. It's like potentially we'll have a hard number. We're carrying right now the estimate of the $1 million basically.
Yeah.
This, however, gives us an extension on this roof of 20 years, and it's a secondary seal coating that extends the life of this roof. And while that feels like a lot of money, it's less than $3 million. So the idea is that if we can take some of our roofs that are in a good place and do this seal coating, we can kind of kick the can down the road and stretch out another 20 years.
A couple decades.
Yeah, before we have to put these large roofs back into more major repairs. So this is one we'll be talking about at town meeting to answer questions on, but it really is a thoughtful way to basically save money by doing a project in a timely manner early.
Yeah.
This section of the Mill Pond roof is in good enough shape to do that. The other roof, and the Westborough High School is a very large building. So there's 3 design projects that we're doing to prepare for future work in the roofs. We're not doing them now. This is the design so that we would be ready to, I think, in next year or the year after, I think is where Capital Committee thought these projects would go. We would then have the design and be ready to go out to bid. But they wanted to stage out the design costs now so that they can put it into cycle and be able to make decisions about when we want to put the roof sectioning out for bid. So there's 3 sections. There's the rim, which goes around that outside interior of the high school. It is structural. It does have structural needs. We're actually looking to renovate that to put on a metal fascia rim, which actually would be give us 30 to 40 years extension on that, which seems really positive. Then we're looking at actually designing the restoration using that same process where we can do that seal coating. And that would save us 20 years on that roof and push a big section of C-wing, which is a newer section of roof, kind of same as Mill Pond, down the road.
Yeah.
And then lastly, A and B actually need to be replaced. So that's designed to replace those two sections of roof. And so these would be completed, and then we would basically hold on to those. And Anita would be working forward with the capital committee in the future when I won't be the person working with you on it.
Let's not talk about that.
I'm excited. Allison will do a great job. She's ready
will.
to step in and go.
I'm really excited.
And she'll be here to work forward on these projects. And I think this is where the structure of the capital committee is so good, because you've already got partnership with them.
Oh, yeah.
They're such a good group. And so, Kim Foster's done such a good job with that team. And so she'll be working with us on kind of staying the course. These are all design, and those are ones, while those numbers, I think these are all coming out of free cash, which is smart for design. And then, so this won't have debt load impact. So these are all recommended right now to come out of free cash. I think that's where they were all standing.
They are,
Right? So, and I think it's important to pay attention, for those of you that don't come to town meeting a lot, when these come forward, if they're on free cash and those don't go in, they don't need to be put into a borrow, and they don't impact the debt load, they don't impact the tax load.
Exactly.
So you'll see at town meeting that they're going to make thoughtful choices. We don't make those recommendations. Those come from the
town
select
meeting.
board and with recommendation from FinCom. All right, let's move on. So now this is the Hastings roof. Do you want to take this one? You want me to? You want to go?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right.
So the Hastings roof information. So we had a catastrophic event happen in January where we had snow, when we had a lot of snow and rain, caused serious roof leakage throughout Hastings. You can see pictures. I'll show you exterior. So these are interior pictures that we have of damage that happened throughout the school. As you can see, kitchen, classrooms, or ceilings, hallways. There was just water pouring in every area of the school. So because of this, we ended up applying for a waiver through DCAM, and it was approved. So basically, how the DCAM waiver works is we basically bypass the entire bid process. So we just have a shorter amount of time in order to get some quotes. So we ended up getting 5 quotes. We had reached out to 5 different roofing vendors. 3 vendors actually ended up sending us quotes. One of them was delayed. One of them decided not to. So
of the 3, the lowest bid was the 3.758.
Yeah.
And then we had to put in 10% contingency of the 384.8, which is to be carried for unanticipated costs. You always have to carry contingency. If we're fortunate, we won't use it and it can be reverted back to the town or folded into other work at Hastings with the vote of the town in the future. That brings that article to the 4.1 million, basically.
Correct.
That is that's just a huge number. It's an 80,000 square foot roof, though.
plus it's important to note that the roof that's on there now, it's 27 years old.
Yeah, I shout out to our maintenance team and to the groups that come in and do the emergency repairs. So the Hastings roof, we do have some additional funding for other projects we voted on. I know people that go to town meeting will remember we've done a lot. Can you just talk about that amount and how we would then leverage that against the bid when we open it?
Yeah, so right now, you can see that. So we've done many projects for the Hastings School in the past, and we do have some funds available right now. And if you look at the pink highlighted $1.4 million, this is money that is available right now to be used. So we're going to look at offsetting the potential quote unquote $5 million for the ADA project by that $1.4 million. So hopefully after 1 o'clock we'll know how much our total amount's going to be that comes in through the bid.
Perfect. And I think important to note here, before we summarize. You weren't even here for those, so I feel bad that I'm making you answer those questions. I
No.
feel like all I've done is talk about Hastings for like the last 9 years.
I mean, don't get me wrong. It was a lot of information, a lot of digging, a lot of.
I just want to say the
forensic
fact,
accounting I had to do for until late at night, weekends, us talking at 11 o'clock at night.
I think both of our husbands think it's funny that like we talk at like 10 o'clock at night and they think we're crazy.
I think once we may have talked at 11:30.
Yeah, I know. Don't tell. But that's when we build the budget. It's late at night. So we feel like the highlights for you are this, which is we have several articles, all roof basically, coming before you, except for the Hastings ADA, which is interior to that building. These are large numbers.
Yeah.
We recognize that. But we also can see that when we pushed off Hastings to do Armstrong, when it had some failure of the roof, there's just times when we lose the window to wait.
Yeah.
I do think that the seal coat articles for Mill Pond and the section of the high school let us gain some time and take a roof that's in good shape and then really push out the window. 20 years is a great warranty on those.
Great.
And when we're done with this, we should be in a place where the vast majority of the roofs are now repaired.
Throughout the district, yeah.
It would be the high school over the next couple of years where we take that design and decide when we're ready. But other than that,
The other schools have
we should be in
done.
good shape.
Yeah.
So, while it feels like the endless list, I also feel like we've made incredible progress working with the town to maintain these buildings. But you can't get into a place where you lose a roof and you have interior damage, because then you get into all sorts of other problems that are even more catastrophic and more expensive. So while we just want to acknowledge, I think it's important to acknowledge the size and cost of those projects, we hope you understand that they're also at a place where we know that they're necessary to maintain our buildings. And I guess we could say in summary, it's almost the same about our budget. We really have it down to just salaries this year and made a lot of reallocations you saw when we talked it through, where we pushed a lot of funding against the salary, but we really can't continue, given that we did the offsets this year, to then have that compound, or we get into loss of service and program and loss of staff. This budget is to provide what we need to run the district, and we rely on the town to trust us that we're going to be good stewards of those funds and keep our increases as small as possible. So thank you for joining us for all things budget. This is the end of Superintendent Spotlight. We appreciate that you recognize the importance of coming to town meeting and helping us sustain a high quality district, and we thank you for watching. Take care.